Hey guys, it's me, Amethio, from the Pokemon anime. I'm just here to say, I'm not Shadow the Hedgehog. And this episode's all about me and my own original arc, where I discover I am all of me. And I am not shitting you. That he legit says I am me and only me in this episode. And he's not Shadow the Hedgehog. So, make sure you guys like and subscribe to S-Man's video. And let's get into the review about me, Amethio, who's not Shadow the Hedgehog. Starting off with this episode, I just want to get the Rising Vote Tackler stuff out of the way. It's basically just them having like a little long discussion about what Rukurium truly is on the way to Rukura. And Molly like gets it on point. And I gotta say, I loved Molly's little doctor talk relating to Rukurium to what it could potentially do using real life science. And as a bio major myself, I loved hearing this because it's all stuff I'm learning. So yeah, nice to see the overlap between my career and Pokemon. Probably the only overlap I'll ever get, unless we get a Pokemon Doctor game. But yeah, Molly's theory is basically that Rukurium helps the body create mass amount of cells, which obviously, if you know anything about it, cells are basically what make up your body. And when you damage cells, you eventually grow new ones and destroy cells. Basically, the idea of Molly proposes is that Rukurium is a device that basically potentially infinitely creates new cells, making them stronger and stronger as they come in, and potentially increasing one's lifespan because the forever introduction of new cells, basically creating immortality. Which she's kind of spot on this, and basically, as we learn later in the episode with the research that we learn, the company Gibeon runs is basically doing. But yeah, that's really all we get from the Rising Gold Tacklers, besides them arriving to where they believe Lucario is in the end of the episode. And we get a funny scene where they want to fly as high as they can to go over a mountain, and Orla straight up flips on them saying, no, you are going to kill our ship if you do that. But yeah, that was a really funny scene. Moving on to the meat and potatoes of this episode, we have the Explorers plotline and a fully Explorers episode, and I loved it. This is what I wish we get. Like, every couple episodes, we need, like, an Explorers thing. And I'm going to discuss this later on. I definitely believe that, especially with stuff that happened in this episode, the Explorers should be getting more shine on their own personal relationships. But yeah, episode starts off with our main four admins talking to Gibeon, where they're reporting basically what Coral and Onyx witnessed, them getting Rayquaza and the other hero Pokemon in Area 0, and they're all heading to Rukura now. So they're going to have to move on soon. That's when Gibeon agrees and basically says, alright, it's time to get moving. To Rukura we go. That's when Coral and Onyx mention, are they going to let Amethio join them for the plan to increase firepower against the Rising Gold Tacklers, where Spinel and Agate basically brush him off and say no, catching the attention of Hamber, which we'll get back to later. We cut to Amethio, Anya, and Zer breaking into Spinel's lab to basically see what he plans to do with Rukurium, because as we learned later in the episode, that Amethio has a hunch that Spinel is basically doing this for an alternative reasons that isn't going to be helping out the Explorer's ultimate goal. So he looks at the research when they get caught by Spinel's goons, where Spinel's goons will lock them up and basically trap them in a warehouse. We then get Spinel and Agate having a meeting with Gibeon himself, where they discussed heading to Rukura. And basically, Spinel, he has another monologue about the potential of Rukura in the future of the Explorers, and how Spinel says himself, their main goal is to keep Gibeon alive for another 1,000, or for another 100 or even 200 years. Cutting back to the warehouse, Hamber breaks free Amethio and his gang and gives them all back their Pokeballs. Theorizing that Spinel was going to do something to Amethio in order to keep him hidden, Hamber did his own research and figured out what happened in order to help Amethio. And one of the big key points of the episode is the bond between Hamber and Amethio his subordinates, and I gotta say I loved it. I kind of wish we got more of this. We basically get like, we also get like a lot of context about Amethio's life that, hey, would have been really interesting not 83 episodes into the series. Amber and Amethio discuss Spinel's scheme, and they both realize that they're on the same wavelength where Spinel is gonna betray the explorers. So Amber invites Amethio to his house in order to teach him what really happened at Rukua, because that's what Amethio wants to know. What happened between Gibeon and Lucius. And that's when Amethio drops the Shadow the Hedgehog line, I want to figure out who I am. Like, I'm gonna be honest, like, I'm gonna be so real. I don't know how that makes any sense to the context of what's going on. How does him not knowing who he is and who he's supposed to be relate to anything we've seen in the previous episodes? Yeah, I don't really know where they were going with that. But, yeah. Kanya and Zur are gonna back out of basically the meeting, but Amethio says, no, I want you guys by my side. And it just shows the commonality, the camaraderie, to basically the family Amethio formed with these two. Would have been nice to see in the actual series, because all we've really ever seen of them is basically them just following Amethio around doing what he says. And also, half the time when Amethio appears, they're not even anywhere to be found. So this kind of feels weird that like they're supposed to like be the Team Rocket of the series, but we don't really see the bond they have together until like this episode. Besides them agreeing to follow him when he was kicked from the Explorers almost like 20 episodes ago. But yeah, Amber basically gives them the huge lore dump. Basically about how Gibeon saw the encounter at Rukua, where he saw Bristol and Lucius as his closest friends and allies, and he actually admired Lucius, his dreams and admiration, and even like determination to find Rukua, but was ultimately betrayed by Lucius, and almost led to Gibeon's own death, because Lucius could not see what Gibeon saw with the Rucrium, which is basically advanced to medical technology and basically helping society, but it was too dangerous. But Lucius saw it as too dangerous, while Gibeon only saw it as the solution. Blah blah blah. And Amber also mentions that Zygarde did betray. That this event led to Zygarde losing a lot of its cells, and we even see a shiny Zygarde cell, where he reveals that some of the cells have been recovered, and the specific one he's showing off has a bond with him. I love how they also use the graphic. It's the graphic of regular Zygarde, so it shows that regular Zygarde does exist. And we also see a Zygarde cell that could be squishy, but yeah. Amber ends the story by saying that Gibeon was able to retrieve a small amount of Rucrium, and he started basically the research lab that Friede used to work at, and we see the Explorers operation going out of now, to basically study Rucrium and create like eternal life. And we also get a really interesting lore dump where it says Amber was like once like a trainer who met Gibeon, of how Amber relates to Gibeon, and he was just a trainer who met Gibeon when he was young. Gibeon was basically able to guide him on the path he knows he wants to live, and because of that, he decided he will stand alongside Gibeon, whether that be for evil deeds or not. It just shows the loyalty he has. And even because he's technically Amethio's caretaker, he's basically a member of it. He's basically the son of Gibeon. Not really, but like he's basically like a son of Gibeon, and what would be Amethio's like real father. And Amethio even says himself, Amber was a good enough parent to me that I never really felt like I was lacking a parent figure in my child. Branching off that, we actually learned that Amethio's mother died. She was like in a car crash when he was really young. And I just think it's crazy that they straight up just said that. He says, oh yeah, my mom died in a car crash. This is the Pokemon anime. Like, what? But yeah, that also probably explains why him and his father seem so estranged a few episodes later. We even see in their family pictures, his father is really only in one, and is really seems to be like distancing himself to work on work. And probably the only reason this is what my theory is. Because of, I definitely think Amethio's mother is the daughter of, Gibeon. Or a clone, who knows. But, Amethio's father, Friede's old boss, works at his little company and becomes the head, and that's where he meets the daughter and gets, because it's technically his boss' blessing, he marries the daughter and creates Amethio. But the mother dies, he becomes estranged from Amethio, and Amethio basically follows in his grandfather's footsteps. But that's what really my theory is. But yeah. We also get a really interesting lore dump where Hamber trained every member of the Explorers except for Spinel, and it's because Spinel found out so much about Rukuum because the company members of the company were originally not tied into Explorers activity, but because of just how much research and like really good like information Spinel was able to uncover, he was like invited into the organization as an admin. And I gotta say, that's a really interesting backstory for Spinel. And it just I can't wait. Spinel's my goat, and I really hope that he just like shows up at Rukua and becomes the main villain of the series. That'll be a really good twist because I love Spinel. But yeah, Amethio declares that in order to protect his grandfather, he must go to Rukua himself to stop Spinel and his evil deeds. And that's when Kanya and Zura also get up and decide to stand by their boss. And the episode ends with them heading to Rukua and the Rising Volt Attackers arriving, like I mentioned earlier. And that's basically where the end is. And we know where this is going. Amethio is probably going to join alongside Liko and the gang to fight against the Explorers. But yeah, overall, I really like this episode. This was definitely a needed episode because Amethio does not get enough screen time as he deserves and needs, because he's practically one of like the major characters of the series, and I feel like he's gotten massively shafted over the series, and I just wish we got more of him, especially because of his importance being the grandson of Gibeon, directly tying into the legacy of the Explorers. And also relates to Liko, like he says himself in these episodes, they're tied together by fate, being the descendants of the ancient Explorers. But yeah, I give this episode 8 out of 10. Definitely would have been better if we got more episodes like this earlier on. But yeah, hope you guys like this video. Subscribe for more content like this in the future because we're heading to Rukua.